Welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast, the show where business gets personal and performance meet purpose. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are diving into a topic that's often underestimated but absolutely game changing: how business relationships and personal branding shape the trajectory of success for business owners and startup founders. Now, listeners, let me introduce my guest to all of you. Our guest is a global speaker and strategist who has cracked the code on building powerful, authentic relationships without the sleaze, the script, or the salesy energy. Having spoken and consulted across 26 plus countries and worked with cutting edge startups and global brands, she has developed a system called the Human Factor Method to help people achieve their goals through real human connections. So, whether you are building a brand, scaling your company, or just trying to get noticed in a noisy world, this conversation is for you. And listeners, meet my incredible guest, Lirone Glikman. So, Lirone, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Sana. Same here. As I said before, I'm so honored to be on your show. I'm really excited about this talk that we're going to have here. So thank you.
Great. Lirone, let's start with whether why this skill is so underrated. I mean, you say that no one teaches us how to build authentic relationships. So why do you think that this skill is so underrated, especially in the startup and founder ecosystem?
Thank you. So, first of all, when we go to school, and I've been traveling and teaching in many countries, it's rarely that someone said that they had a class about networking, maybe a short course, but I mean, the official systems don't really teach us that. And maybe they think that because we communicate with one another since almost the day we were born, we should know how to do it. But that's actually the other way around. So, the thing is that, nothing in a world, or, in even our societies and our cultures, nothing happened without collaboration, without human connection. And this collaboration connection comes to life through relationship building. And I think you asked why is it underestimated, and specifically for founders and so on. So I think there are several reasons. First of all, some people think it is given. Either you know how to, as you said, I like that you said that it's not fake. I mean, how to schmooze, like people call it, or not. And then in the other hand, it gets a bad reputation. Like if you know how to network, maybe just want something out of me. And so it has a bad reputation. The other thing, which this is actually the core based on my research, is that we all are all driven by fear. um, a public speaking research in the US revealed that about 90% of people have some type of social anxiety in different situations. It could be when I'm talking to someone, like one on one, when I speak to a manager or an authority, when I speak to 20 people at a boardroom, or even through Zoom, which means that we should normalize that most of us have some issue with human interaction that's supposed to help us get something. You may know that sometimes it's so much comfortable for most of us to ask people we know for help for someone else, but it would be so much harder to ask for ourselves. So if I'm going to wrap up the answer, then yeah, networking has a bad reputation. People think that either you have it or not, but the core issue is that we never been taught how to do it, and that's why we're afraid of being rejected, of being wrong, of not being liked. And these barriers can be really the differentiator between success and failure.
Wow, that's quite surprising, Liron. Quite surprising. And uh, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a gap there, and what I believe that, especially in the early stage growth, uh, founders they often prioritize product over people, but relationships, they're often the real currency. So what's your opinion on that?
Tana, I love that you raised this question because, there is always this big question, what's more important, the product or the marketing? And
Mm.
I do see business relationships and personal branding as a part of the marketing. And with my over to almost 10 years work with different founders, naturally before they go out there they have to have a product. The product, it's the reason for their existence, and along the way or maybe a bit later when they want to get board members or employees or investment and clients, then usually they get into the issue of, oh my god, we don't have a brand, or we didn't really nurture our network in advance and now we need to approach people from scratch. And then usually they understand that if they would have um, plan and create their network authentically when they were smaller, even their own brand, let's say even starting to write on social media, LinkedIn, and so on, when they reach to this part where they want to create an advantage in front of investors or clients and so on, this is where usually they understand that it was better to start beforehand. And then the question is, okay, but when a startup is on a stealth mode, there is not much to say. They can't say and they're unsure, so they don't want to put themselves, unreliable when their product or even their solution is not ready yet. So usually what I would recommend, because of this tension between product and marketing and business relationship, is really to start small. Don't don't exaggerate with your marketing, but start meeting people way before you might need their help. For example, if a founder know that within 6 months they want to start raising money, then I would
Mhm.
go to different investors or different events and just ask to consult with them. Hey, I'm not here to pitch you my startup. We're not ready yet. We're in stealth, but can I ask you a question um, about our solution or a field? Decide how much they should decide how much they want to share. So
Mhm.
asking for advice way before you need those decision makers and people, it's a great way to connect with people because you're not asking for anything. You're not asking them to either invest in you, and through that, usually most people love to give advice, especially investors that most of their conversation would be giving startups advice rather than money. And through that, they build a relationship and they can follow up. Hey, thank you so much for your advice. And a few months later, tell them, I don't know, happy Merry Christmas, or really, we took on what you said. And then keep on the relationship until the day that they really want to pitch their company. And that's, so I would definitely recommend to start very small in posting some posts on social media that are around your topic. Getting to know the people in small steps and
Mhm.
paving the way for the right timing when the product is more solid.
Mm. That absolutely makes sense, Lirone. Um, okay, and I'm really really curious to know about the human factor method. I mean, its origin and what exactly it is, and also how does it help someone land clients or investors without even an existing network?
And this is a great question.
Mhm.
So, the origin of the human factor actually started with my own life story. I always wanted to. I grew up in a small village in Israel, and I always wanted to work globally. And I was so frustrated because I wanted to work. For example, one time I had a dream to work for NASA, but I didn't know anyone in NASA. So how could I, get there? And from a very young age, I understand one that if I want to fulfill my dreams, I need to get to the right people who have the ability to decide whether I will be able to get hired or not. And then I realized that I have no one, there's no way to get there. And through that, I started investigating myself, my environment, and later on interviewed and read all the books around networking. There are a lot of books out there. If someone wants to learn, then of course they can learn. One of the famous books would be How to Win Friends and Influence by Dale Carnegie, which is kind of the Bible on this. And then I was speaking with Ivan Meisner, who invented BNI, which is the biggest global networking group, and so on. And and then with my experience, I moved twice to even three times to different countries. The third time wasn't planned,
Oh,
and
okay.
without knowing anyone, I was able to create relationship that led me to reach really high. Like I moved to Australia, didn't know anyone, and then within 2 months, I got to work for the biggest corporate in the country. Through the personal experience that was tested, I taught the method. And sorry, did you want to ask something before I share the method?
Yeah, go ahead. You know.
Sure. So just wanted to give you the background. So after I tested it on myself, I built this method that on the one hand, it's a system because, many times, even if we know how to do things, it's really easy when someone gives you a solid system. So the base of the human factor method to achieve your goals through relationship building is that it has to be authentic and strategic. But first of all, be authentic. It only works when it's real, and then it's okay to be strategic. It's okay to want to achieve something. That's definitely the only way that things come to life if you have a goal. With that in mind, it has 6 pillars. The first one is goal. Many times we are unsure of our goal, and sometimes we don't know how to break our goals into smaller ones. For example, my goal is to have a successful startup. So that's a big goal. The smaller goal would be to find an investor within 6 months, to hire 3 people, to have a solution, find a solution, and usually we need expert to help us find a solution to something. So first of all, understand your goals. Then it's about people strategy. It's like we have business plan and business strategy, marketing plan. Let's create a people plan. And this is a different approach to how we view the people around us. Many times we don't look at people around us as people who can help us, but the truth is that people that we know usually would be the first one to want to support us. And I always say that we just need to ask. So it's about to shift our mindset of how we look at our current network and how we strategically build the right one. So this is more strategic part, the people plan. Then it's about a personal brand, which is face to face and online. For example, when we approach investor or a client or anyone we meet, usually the first thing they would do would be to Google us or look at our LinkedIn, or ask us if they meet us, tell us more about yourself. So many
Yeah.
times we're unsure how to present ourselves. So that's the branding. Then it's about connecting, breaking the ice, building a rapport, and building a memorable first connection that could pave the way for a relationship. Then it's the hardest part is maintaining the relationship. I really share how to make sure we keep it, because if we don't keep the relationship, it probably will not last. And the final is how to leverage for results. So it's basically how to build a relationship that is good enough that people would be so happy to support you and willingnessly will want to help you. So if I'll just repeat that again, it's about understanding what is your goal, creating a people plan, making sure you know how to build your brand, how to connect authentically and be memorable, how to maintain relationship, and then how to turn it into a result that you want to get. So, and that's right for anyone who's just starting out. If you have no network, like if you land in a new country, this is it. And also, if you have a network, then might be easier to use the method.
Mm. And first of all, thank you so much for explaining this. And Liron, which particular step do you see, um, the maximum gap in there? I mean, I am assuming maintaining relationships, because that is actually very, kind of tricky and difficult to do. So, where exactly do you see the most of the gap?
So definitely, as you said, maintaining relationship, it's the biggest gap because, we don't know, like we know so many people through our lifetimes. First of all, our mind, our brain physically cannot remember more than, some research says 150 people, others says 300 to 400 people at a given time. But of course, we know more. So we have, let's say, a physical limitation. On the other hand, we don't know that from all the people we have ever met, who will be the next one to help us get the right, investor, or will be a business partner, startup partner, co-founder, and so on. And that's the problem. So we need to essentially decide who are the relevant people we want to keep in touch with, because we can't keep in touch with everyone. And that's the problem. And there are different models and systems that I also share. One of them would be it's a system developed by Michael Port, which is an American marketer, and he called it the 90 list. He said, let's say if you're a startup founder, create a list of up to the 90 of the most important people for you right now. It could be even 10, 15, 20, whatever, and up to 90. It could be people that you know, like investors that you want to keep in touch with, or people you want to know. And then every day, make sure to get in touch with one or two. And getting in touch meaning sending a personal message or a comment on LinkedIn, or liking or sending them an article that could support them. So let's say that you have 30 people that are most important for you right now. And once a month, you send them a personal message that gives them value. You do it for 3 months. And on the fourth month, you want to ask them to view your deck and maybe invest in you. Then you're not out of the blue, you're not just coming there and they don't know who you are. They already build a relationship with you. So a different system. So that's definitely the hardest part, because it takes strategy and planning of who are the right people, and then also how to communicate authentically. Another part that I find a lot of problem with would be the personal branding and the connection, because there is an inherent anxiety and fear. As I said earlier, many times one of the hardest issues when it comes to creating authentic and good relationships, it's not the technical part of, hey, go to this person and tell him that. Everyone can do it. The problem is that we're just uncomfortable, or again experiencing the anxiety of getting rejected. So many times it's mental blocks that makes it harder for us to actually approach the person and make the ask. What do you think about it? What resonates with you? What do you think would be the hardest part?
Um, I believe, as you mentioned about, the method, the list of 90 most important people. I think that's where sometimes and personally I also falter, because I may think that I may assume that they're thinking why, this person is randomly every time sending me articles or anything or text or something. I'm very sure that they would need something from me. I mean, I may assume that it's to them, it is looking more pushy or persuasive or needy, because they may not see any value in, maintaining that connection with me. So I think that's where we as a founder or as even a professional, if we are connecting with them, then we definitely have to either understand ourselves the value in maintaining that connection, or at least help them see that value. And that's where I think the personal voice also comes into the picture.
I love what you said, and also specifically about, no, we don't want to come across as pushy.
Mm.
We don't want to annoy people. And I personally, I also experienced that. But on the other hand, I always say that doors that we won't knock on would never open up for us. And many times when I struggle with it, and I do struggle with that every now and again, because I want to communicate with someone, then I always try to, first of all, it's a bit maybe spiritual, but I try to kind of connect to their energy and try to think what would be the best way to approach them, and what would I think or feel that would be the right vibe, or words, or so on. And many times I also take it the other way around. I ask myself, if I was in his shoes, in what way would I would like to be approached? What would I appreciate? So I definitely put a lot of thought about it, because I do think that every relationship is valued and is important, and I don't want to, now I'm exaggerating, abuse it. Having said that, what I also discovered, that most people are so happy to help, because majority of the population just feel uncomfortable, don't want to be pushy, and they don't do anything. So most of the decision makers, when they're being approached in the right way, and again, not a pushy way, then they usually really appreciate that. And one way to do it, which I also love, if I'm unsure of, if it's right or not, then usually I just really come up front. I'm being very honest with this person, tell them, hey, I really appreciate what you do. I want to ask you for something, but you really don't have to. I would appreciate any answer, yes or no. I would really appreciate your time considering this. I mean, I'm giving them a way out. So this is a way that I feel comfortable, but I also make sure that they don't feel like that, now I'm just like convinced or, making sure that they have to give it to me. So this is one way that I'm using sometimes. And maybe I'll also add that it's also a cultural thing. It's so I always say, and I really emphasize it in my book, the Super Connectors Playbook, that shares this method and my talks and master classes. I want you to think how everything I've just said, how can it work for you? Because, for example, in India, the culture is different. And for example, I know there's a lot of there's big value for family and for support. And Israeli ecosystem, for example, I can approach anyone in the tech ecosystem and they would help me even if they don't know me. But in Germany, people would not get back to me. So please think how what I said, how can you translate it to your personality and your community and your ecosystem?
Hmm. Absolutely. And you know this very well because you have consulted in 26 plus countries. I mean, and I think this global view, it could really help our listeners see past localized approaches and also expand their mindset. I think that can also give an extra edge.
So true. And you just reminded me of a story that again is in my book. My book shares the method, but also with a lot of stories from all over the world, from Austin, Texas to Sydney, Australia to Berlin. And one of the stories, speaking of cultural differences, I call it basically when we are at events. I went to an event in Berlin, and I knew the audience are startup founders, and potentially I can help them with my services. So one way is to go one by one, which was obviously harder because I couldn't see in advance who's getting there. And the other tactic I use is what I like to call the Q&A hack. Now, it's also what I'm going to share. It's also cultural based. I sat, there was like a panel discussion with investor and the Minister of High Tech of Germany. And I sat like in the second row. And then we reached the Q&A part. And the German founders that were there, they turn to people to ask questions. Then someone raise his hand and say, "Hi, my question is." And then another person, German, raised their hand and say, "Hi, my question is." And then I raised my hand and very short and precise, I said, "Hi, my name is Lirone. I'm a mentor on business development at Techstars." This is where we were. And my question is, so I didn't hijack the conversation and just give a very short introduction. And the keywords were that I'm a mentor, I'm doing business development for startups, and I'm also a part of this community of Techstars where we met. And after the talk, 5 different founders approached me. "Oh my God, you're a mentor. You're from Techstars as well." So, I mean, making sure you're taking few seconds more in the Q&A session to introduce yourself, that may take some courage and not many cultures would feel comfortable with. Yet again, it could invite interesting people and opportunities to you.
That's a really good one. That's a really good one. I mean, so many, founders and entrepreneurs, and across countries, we have networking events. And I think it's a really good way. Yeah, you are right. It definitely requires, it needs a bit of courage, but it's such a good and simple way to start with. That's a really good one you shared, Liron. I'm gonna personally take that in my mind as well
Oh,
because
please. So you should update me how it goes for you.
yeah,
And again, my main advice is to think how this can work for you. Again, how would you feel comfortable doing this Q&A
definitely.
hack?
Hmm. And uh, let's say I'm a founder. I'm a completely new founder. I'm creating, developing something very new, And I would like to mention that in my intro, when I in the Q&A part. So what do you think? I mean, how much time should I take in that, mentioning? Like, because I have to like be very precise, in just a few words, I have to explain, that I'm, Sana, and I'm founder of XYZ uh, company, and which is trying to solve this problem, something like that. How would you suggest to say that?
Exactly. First of all, I have to say that many times, even for me that I've been around and I'm, experienced in that many times before my turn comes, I feel my heart beats because I'm like, I want to make sure they get it and I want to make it, right. And I don't want to hijack the conversation. So first of all, if you feel a bit excited, that's okay. It's a part of what you should feel. Um, Secondly, I would definitely try to maybe write it for myself or practice because there is a fine line between hijacking the conversation and making a very concrete and relevant introduction. And I maybe say something like, "Yeah, I am Sarah and I'm the founder of X company that helps X to do Y, and my question is." So usually a good short introduction would be, again, you want to share your name, the name of the company, who is your audience and what do you solve for them?
Yep. I
Sometimes that could be a good formula to have be very concrete and relevant. Yeah. And also, sorry, the most important thing is to ask a really relevant question. Just make sure that your question would give value to the people in the audience as well.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Wow, wow, Liron, I'm so excited. So, before we wrap this conversation, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and um, explore more about the human factor method, about your book and the work that you are doing, what will be the best way?
Thank you. Basically, my website, lironeglikman.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm usually as responsive as I can, so I invite people to write to me on LinkedIn. And my book, The Super Connectors Playbook, can be found on Amazon and also on my website. I have to say, there is also a free giveaway for those who purchase the book. They can go back to my website and put the information, and then they get full workbook and a few really valuable videos, master classes on how to build, how to make business at every port and how to make connections at conferences. Yeah, and always happy to get to know new people. So feel comfortable. I don't bite.
Lovely, lovely. I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes for our listeners. And Liron, this was gold because personally, I found it so useful, many, many useful insights. And I'm very sure our listeners are so interested, so curious to explore more. So, thank you so much for reminding us that even in this modern digital tech age, the most powerful force in business is still real, authentic human connection.
Thank you, Sana. And with that in mind, I'll just add we didn't really cover the AI, but AI could be a really great co pilot. It could be your supporter in
Mhm.
analyzing relationship, analyzing how you connect with people, writing content, but make sure it's not taking over your personality and who you are. So it's really good to use it as a support, but not as a replacement for the connection that you actually make. That might be a last statement. And Sana, it's been such a great pleasure. I really appreciate the time and the questions, and it's been wonderful for me to take part and share my knowledge and learning. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure that I got this opportunity to know something, because uh, it's obvious, it's around us, but some of the things we uh, are not aware of. I mean, it's so basics, so fundamental. So this is such a crucial aspect of a business. I think irrespective of whether we are a founder, entrepreneur, or a business owner, or anyone, I think networking, whether it's professional or personal, connections, human connections, they help us move forward. within guiding or mentoring or just being there, for us, and we are there for them also. So thank you so much, Liron, and to all the listeners. That's a wrap on today's episode on the BizBlend podcast. If this conversation has sparked something in you, maybe a reminder that who you know and how you show up matters just as much as what you build, then take this as your invitation to start showing up with more intention and obviously more humanity. So don't forget to follow the show, leave a review, and this if this episode helped you, share it with a fellow founder or business owner. And make sure to connect with Liron and check out the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep blending business with what matters most. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.